After my wife, Sarah, and I were reborn, we ended up back in the year we started college. But instead of sticking with me, she chased after her old crush, Kevin. She even said I made her unhappy before and made fun of how useless I was. This time I was wide awake. I didn't give up my chance to take over my family's rich company or study a great subject at school for her. I was doing what I was supposed to do. What I didn't see coming, though, was that Sarah's crush, Kevin, was actually a crazy person who wanted her to be blamed for his bad deeds. In the end, it was Sarah, hurt and defeated, who did everything she could to get me to forgive her. But I never turned back to her. When I was old, I wrote down my wish for the next life with my dear wife, Sarah, at the wishing spot in the park. I want to be with Sarah forever in the next life, too. She was the only one I truly loved in this life, but I still hoped for another try. The next day when I woke up, I was shocked to see I was back in the year I began college. "Hello, new students." The sign hanging at the school entrance reminded me of that time. Back then, I had given up going to a really good college, just to be at the same one as Sarah. After trying for so long, she finally felt moved and said yes to me. Thinking about it, I couldn't wait to drop my bags and hurry to her room to see her. I wonder if she's also been reborn? On my way to see her, I kept thinking about seeing Sarah again. I ran fast, but then a voice I knew came from nearby. "Hey, Mark, I have so much stuff, I'm so tired. Can you give me a hand?" I turned around and saw Sarah with a suitcase, looking a bit red, teasing the guy next to her. She was still as pretty as before, with skin as white as snow and long hair. The guy next to her was someone I knew very well. He was Sarah's crush, Kevin. Everyone knew Sarah had liked Kevin before. He was many girls' first love, and many others had tried to get with him. Sarah had been one of the main ones. Kevin took her suitcase and smiled. I could see her ears getting redder. They walked off, talking and laughing. I started to feel like something was wrong. Before, at this time, I was the one helping Sarah with her stuff. But this time I got there even sooner, and she chose to find Kevin instead. It was obvious Sarah had also been reborn. That night I couldn't sleep. Sarah had been reborn, so why didn't she come to me first? Why did she pick Kevin? Finally, I couldn't wait any longer and called her to find out. "Sarah, you've been reborn too, right?" There was a quiet moment on the phone before she said, "Yes." I was so happy that we had both been reborn that I totally forgot about her and Kevin. "That's awesome, Sarah. Our wish came true. We'll be together in this life, too." I was so happy, but I didn't realize her voice sounded much less excited. When Sarah was getting ready to change her major, I told her many times, "You have to study hard and get into my doctor program. We promised this life would be better than the last." She agreed right away and spent hours in the library every day, studying for 7 or 8 hours. I was very pleased. It seemed like before, she felt bad for not passing the doctor exams. This time she wanted to study hard for both of us. I was the only one Sarah loved. That day she must have just bumped into Kevin. I dreamed every day of us having a great college life in the same major. I even imagined us continuing to study medicine and becoming a great couple in the field. But one day, I saw Sarah's choice for her new major. It wasn't medicine at all. It was thinking and behavior, the subject Kevin was in. Suddenly, I felt completely confused. I angrily asked Sarah, "Didn't we say you'd switch to the doctor program so we could do well together? Why did you secretly change it to thinking and behavior?" Her eyes were watery, looking surprised by my tone, and she looked at me sadly. "I'm sorry. The doctor program is just too hard, and I've found out I like thinking and behavior more. Since I get another chance, I want to study something I really enjoy." "I didn't mean to keep it from you. Please don't be mad." She took my hand, gently moving her fingers in mine. I looked at her face, trying to see what she was feeling. But as I looked at her smile, her eyebrows, even her eyelashes, I felt a strong pull. She kept saying nice things, trying to get me to forgive her. I started to change my mind. If you really like thinking and behavior, then I'm okay with it. To help Sarah get ready for her tests, I went around trying to find information for her. But on my way, I got into a car crash. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Luckily, it wasn't bad, just some small injuries. My roommates were there. I quickly got up, looking around, hoping to see the person I was waiting for. "Stop looking. Sarah hasn't come," one of my roommates, Lewis, said. "How could you not have told her? With something this big, like me being in a car crash, she has to come." I started to worry. They looked at each other and waited before saying, "We told her everything, even said you were almost dead, but she said she had something important and couldn't visit you. Just now, someone even said she's at an art show with Kevin holding hands. Look, there's a picture." Lewis gave me his phone. The shock was like lightning. Before, Sarah and I had been so close, so in love. How could she do this to me? Ignoring my roommates and the pain, I rushed out of the hospital wanting to find Sarah. This time I had to know what was going on. "Meeting you was great." Actually, this song is for someone special. I've liked him for a while. But today, I don't want to hide it anymore. I want to say how I feel. Sarah stood in the middle of the yard, playing with her clothes, a bit red. I had hurried back to school, only to see this. I stopped. I held my breath, hoping Sarah wouldn't say those words. "Kevin, I've liked you for a long time. Will you be with me?" She yelled into the microphone, her words echoing. Everyone looked at Kevin, and the crowd cheered. "Say yes! Say yes! Say yes!" My heart skipped a beat. I was right. Lewis and the others hadn't lied. Kevin was pushed toward Sarah. They stood together, a perfect pair. "Sarah, I like you too." Kevin held her face, looking at her lovingly. Sarah smiled, and I had never seen her smile so big. "Ah, they're together!" They hugged as the cheers got louder. The loud cries hurt my ears. No one saw me in the corner, my heart breaking more each second. Why? I looked at the person I knew but didn't know, my voice shaking. When she saw me, Sarah looked shocked. "Lewis said you were almost dead after being hit by a car. How are you still here?" Her words were like a cold slap. So she really wanted me to die, just so she could be with Kevin in this life. Sarah stopped acting and said everything. "William, do you know why I came back to this day? Because the wish I wrote was that if I could go back, I would be with Kevin." She didn't look sorry. She spoke like it was normal. "Sarah, I came back for you. You're the only one left for me, and you promised. How could you leave me?" I felt so hopeless. She laughed coldly. "I was never happy with you. You ruined my life before. I have a second chance, and I'm asking you, stop keeping me from having a better life. Being with you is bad enough. You have no money, no way to give me a good life. Do you really deserve me?" She spoke through tears, like I had betrayed her. Before, I had given up everything for her. I gave up going to a great school and getting a lot of money. I even switched from a top subject to the one she was in, ruining my own future. I had given up everything, only to find out she was now using all of that to make fun of me. Everything I had done seemed useless to her. Suddenly, Kevin came next to Sarah. "Sarah, it's getting late. Let me take you back," he said, putting a coat on her. Sarah's eyes lit up. "Sure, let's go." Before leaving, she turned and sneered at me. "William, no wonder your parents don't want you. You might as well be alone forever." Indeed, the people closest to you know where to hurt you. But the thing is, I'm not alone. Not only am I not alone, but my family also owns hospitals, and my parents are known in the medical field. Before, after leaving my family, I had lied to Sarah, saying I had been left by my parents, that I was alone. She had always looked sad, saying kind words. I never knew that under her caring look, she had been happy about my bad luck. This time, with my new life, I had finally seen the real person I had once shared my life with. Before, my dad had been heartbroken when he found out I had left him for Sarah, and he died from the stress. But I was too stubborn to see him one last time. The guilt I felt now was too much. Thankfully, in this life, I hadn't completely left my family yet. We were just not talking. This time, I wasn't going to leave any regrets. I called my dad. Dad, I'm sorry. I've realized I can't give up my future for a woman. I will work in medicine and take over the family business. Now I would show Sarah that without her, I could still be someone who wasn't just poor and alone. I soon made up with my family and took on some work in our business. One day my dad took me to meet someone. It was my childhood friend, Fiona. Our families had always been close, and when we were young, our parents joked about us getting married. After I left my family, I had lost touch with her. I heard that when my dad passed, Fiona had been there. I suddenly felt bad for her. When we looked at each other, I saw her eyes were red, and she shook like she was about to cry. Fiona was always strong. I had never seen her like this. My dad patted her shoulder, but she jumped, covering her ears and crouching. "Please, don't take me back! I don't want to be with Kevin anymore!" Hearing Kevin's name froze me. I quickly thought back. After I left the Brown family and got with Sarah, I had heard Fiona and Kevin had gotten married. Seeing her like this, I started to doubt. Why would she yell Kevin's name now when she didn't even know him at this point? I pulled her aside, trying to calm her down while asking her, "Fiona, don't be scared. What happened with Kevin?" "Kevin, he's a monster. He hits me every day and locks me up. He even tried to kill me." At that moment, I was 100% sure I wasn't the only one who had been reborn. "Fiona, don't worry. Now you have another chance." I tested her a little. She looked up at me, surprised. "You've been reborn too?" I nodded and told her everything. "Sarah is really that kind of person? She should be with a devil like Kevin." After hearing my story, Fiona was mad. From her, I learned that while Kevin looked charming and nice, he was actually a violent, crazy person. Before, because I had left my family, the marriage between the Green and Brown families had been cancelled. Kevin became a small star. Fiona's dad, to keep his job, had forced her to marry Kevin. Thinking about how all of this bad luck had happened to Fiona because of me, I felt very guilty. This time I wasn't going to let her down. I took her hand, leading her to my dad. "Dad, the marriage we talked about when we were kids now seems like a good time to do it." The news of me getting engaged to Fiona spread fast. None of my classmates knew about my family. They only knew Fiona was the daughter of the Green family. They all thought I had found a rich woman and was living off her. "You're really something, huh? You said I betrayed you, and now, just days after I left you, you found a rich woman, and you still call me the traitor? I think you planned this all along." One day at school, I saw Sarah and Kevin again. Sarah made fun of me, her tone mean. It was so different from the kind person she used to be. She must have been feeling bad that I'd moved on so fast and found someone like Fiona. "Well, I have no money or skill, and I'm tired of trying. This is just how it is." Instead of being upset, I held Fiona's hand tighter, wanting to show off. Sarah, seeing that I wasn't mad and was even showing love for Fiona, seemed to lose it. She tried to say bad things about me to Fiona. "Pretty lady, what's so good about him? He's poor and has no great skills. Don't waste your time on someone like him." Fiona, being her direct self, didn't even look at Sarah. Instead, she rolled her eyes. "Stop wasting time here. Didn't your dad open a hospital near the city? He asked me to go see it with you." Sarah's face turned sour, but then she laughed. "Ha ha ha. So he lied to you about his family owning hospitals, huh? I knew there had to be something wrong. He's just an orphan left by his parents who studied medicine. Don't let him trick you." I took out a card and gave it to Sarah, who was still laughing. "I'm William, son of Robert Brown. My family owns many hospitals." "Oh, and the one you often go to? That's probably one of ours." "This is my childhood friend Fiona, the daughter of Green Group, not some random rich woman." At that moment, Sarah stopped laughing. That evening, Fiona told me Kevin had been reborn, too. Today, when we saw each other, Kevin kept looking at me. I knew he must have been reborn with me. I was so scared I got goosebumps. After thinking, we decided Kevin was likely going after Sarah on purpose. If it had been that easy for Sarah to get Kevin before, she wouldn't have ended up with me. I couldn't wait to see how she would react when she found out her longtime crush was actually a devil. The school term went by, and when we came back for classes, I saw Sarah at the medical school. She seemed like she wanted to say something, but I ignored her and walked past. Surprisingly, she followed me into the class and sat next to me. "What are you doing here? Go back to your arts college and study thinking and behavior." I really couldn't understand what she was trying to do. "What thinking and behavior? This is my class." I switched to the medical school. Now I'm one of them. Sarah looked proud, like she had done something great. It turned out she had changed her major again. Usually this wasn't allowed, as students could only change their minds once, but because of Sarah's great grades, the medical school had let her. I couldn't believe it. Sarah, with her skills, really got into the medical school? And wasn't she trying to be in the same major as Kevin? But I didn't think too much about it. I grabbed my bag and moved, showing I didn't want to sit next to her. After class, Sarah, like a bug, stuck to me. "William, please don't be mad. Look, I worked so hard to get into the major I couldn't even dream of before. Before, I was wrong. We were together for so long, and before you were so good to me. You wouldn't want to leave me in this life, right?" She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled it away. "Stay away from me." Turning around, I saw Fiona waiting for me. Ignoring Sarah's begging, I walked to Fiona. "William." Fiona looked serious. "Just now, Kevin came to me and tried to get back together." Both Fiona and I agreed this was all part of Kevin's plan, and we chose not to answer either of them. Sarah kept sticking to me every day, but each time I said no. A few days later, she disappeared, not coming to school for days. I didn't think much of it. After all, in this life, I didn't need to be with her. That was until today, when I was at the family hospital doing some work. As I passed by the baby and women's area, I saw someone I knew. Sarah was sitting alone on a bench, looking sad. She saw me too and looked up, tears in her eyes. She reached out, as if to hug me, but I quickly moved away. Sarah looked hurt. I took the paper from her hand and frowned. "You're pregnant? Is it Kevin's?" She bit her lip and nodded. I just pushed the paper back and said calmly, "I hope you're happy." My answer didn't meet Sarah's hopes, and it seemed to break her. "William, I'm sorry." She stood up and blocked my way. "Kevin only got with me to use me. He's crazy." "A few years ago, your dad's surgery failed and killed his sister. He's been mad ever since, and he thought that the person you loved was me, so he's been trying to take me away to get back at you. Now that he thinks you don't love me anymore, he's been hurting me every day, trying to break me." Sarah slowly rolled up her sleeve, showing many scars that were awful to see. No wonder Kevin had gone back to beg Fiona to get back together. Everything he did was to hurt me. "So, what do you want now?" Seeing that she was willing to explain some of the truth, I stopped walking. "William, take me with you, please. With your family's power, it would be easy for you to get someone away from Kevin. I'll have the baby, and let it have your last name, okay? I know we've never had kids before, and I know that was your biggest regret in your past life. I also know you love kids, don't you? I foolishly thought that Sarah's attempt to get back together was real, only to realize she wanted me to be her backup plan. Sarah still thought I was some kind of fool who would say yes to anything. She looked at me hopefully, like she believed I would definitely say yes. "You're crazy!" I pushed Sarah away, watching her fall hard. Without looking back, I turned and walked away, not even trying to help her up. "William, I've already said sorry, and you still dare to treat me like this? Aren't you scared of losing me?" She screamed after me, but I didn't look back. "William, I was just confused for a moment. Don't you have any feelings for me left?" It was after graduating that Sarah came to me to make up for the 83rd time. "I'm marrying Fiona now. Are you coming? Since I'm kind, I won't ask for a wedding gift from you." I quickly sent her the wedding invite from Fiona and me. She went quiet and didn't try to contact me again, but then, surprisingly, Sarah actually showed up at the wedding. Only she wasn't there to be happy for us. William's dad killed Kevin's sister in a surgery a few years ago, and there's still no explanation. His son is living such a happy life while the rest of us are suffering. Does that seem fair to you? At the wedding, Sarah grabbed the microphone from the host and said she was going to show the real Brown family. She even brought out all kinds of fake proof, saying our hospital took money. She knew everything about me except for our family, so making fake proof against me was easy. The daughter of the Kevin family is still not at peace, and their family isn't taking responsibility while they continue to do well. How can this be fair? Sarah managed to get the crowd emotional. Some people even stood up, telling Fiona to open her eyes and not marry me. The scene became chaos, with people telling Fiona to think again and not marry me. Before the wedding could even finish, the search term Brown Family Hospital kills people became very popular. Sarah clearly wanted to destroy me and take down the whole Brown family with it. "Miss Green, aren't you leaving yet? If you don't run away from this wedding soon, the police will come to arrest William, and they'll arrest both of you." Sarah seemed happy with the crowd's reaction, even teasing Fiona. Fiona didn't answer her. She just bent down and picked up the microphone that had fallen. "I, Fiona, am marrying William because I want to. Not only me, but even if something happens to the Brown family, the whole Green group will stand by them." Without following the usual wedding steps, Fiona took out the ring and put it on her finger. The whole place went quiet. It was like everyone had been shocked by Fiona's strong presence. She then smoothly slid the ring onto my finger too. She even gave Sarah a look of winning. Sarah's face twisted in anger. Others didn't dare to speak, going back to their seats quietly. In the end, the event still had some effect on the Brown family. Luckily, Green Group kept supporting us, which helped us get through it. My dad got very sick because of it. He had always felt bad about Kevin's sister's death. But the truth was, her death happened because she didn't follow medical advice, causing her to get worse. She died on the operating table. My dad's medical skills were famous, yet he couldn't save her. The Kevin family, however, blamed everything on him. Not long after, news came that Sarah had married Kevin. I couldn't help but laugh. No wonder Sarah had fought so hard to ruin my wedding. It was all for a name to get her place. After everything Kevin had done to her, she was quick to return to him once he gave her a little bit of sweetness. To my surprise, just days after Sarah and Kevin's marriage, something went very wrong. "William, please save me. I can't take Kevin anymore." Sarah was kneeling at my door, crying, her hair a mess, looking totally lost. "Kevin, he killed my daughter with his own hands. She was his own child. All she did was say one thing and he killed her." Her emotions were so wild, it seemed like she was about to fall apart. Anyone who heard this would feel bad, and Fiona waited for a moment, wanting to open the door for her, but I stopped her. "Don't you remember what happened at the wedding? If Kevin calls her back with a snap of his fingers, she'll go right back to him, and we'll be the ones who suffer." Fiona thought for a while, then nodded, pulling her hand back. "William, I'm begging you. What's wrong with me? I was tricked by Kevin last time. He told me you and Fiona had already been together, so I ruined your wedding because I was mad. I was just too emotional. Please don't ignore me. Faced with her begging, I answered coldly. Kevin didn't lie to you. We've been engaged for a long time. We've been together since we were kids. She froze, then fell to the ground in shock. Her eyes went blank for a long time before they started to get red. Finally, something seemed to break inside her, and she fainted. Calling the ambulance was the best I could do for her. The next time I heard news of Sarah, it was being spread around that she had killed her own child. Kevin had personally taken Sarah to court. She was beaten badly by Kevin, her child lost, and in the end, she was betrayed by him, forced to take the blame for what he did. Kevin is like this, Fiona sighed deeply. Sarah has no family or friends, and it looks like she'll definitely lose this case. During the trial, Fiona and I sneaked in to watch. Sarah stood there, her face pale, her eyes full of hopelessness. The judge's voice echoed, while Kevin's lawyer's words seemed aimed only at Sarah. But Sarah couldn't afford a good lawyer. After marrying Kevin, she was not allowed to work, had no money, and was completely at Kevin's mercy. In this life, she willingly chose to be a stay-at-home mom. But now, seeing her in such a bad state, it was clear that she was getting what she deserved. The report came out, showing clear signs of choking on the child's neck, showing that the child had been hurt and killed on purpose. Your Honor, I never thought I'd marry such a cruel woman who would kill her own child. You don't know how happy I was when I first became a dad. But my daughter was only 4 years old. Every time I think about how she was taken from this world so young, it feels like my heart is being torn apart. Kevin stood up, his voice full of emotion as he told of his sadness. No wonder he used to be an actor. His acting is good. Fiona gritted her teeth, and I saw her nails dig into her hands in anger. Anyone who had been treated like this by a bad person before would feel anger when facing that same person now, watching them try to blame someone else. Kevin's lawyer also stood, presenting a case and proof that seemed strong. It was my child. How could I possibly kill her? Sarah cried out. Her child had been killed, and now she was forced to take the blame for the killer. It was more than anyone could handle. Sarah broke down in the court, looking like a different person. She lifted her tearful eyes and saw me sitting there. She waited for a moment. Her look was full of sadness, like there was something she couldn't say. My heart was confused, but I didn't know what to do. So I looked away, avoiding her eyes. Though Kevin had the advantage in court, in the end, it was still an unfair fight. After all, a powerful man like Kevin trying to blame a weak woman was still missing real proof. The first trial ended, and the judge couldn't yet say she was guilty. But I think Sarah wouldn't be able to survive the next one. William. As I stood up to leave, I suddenly heard Sarah call my name. I turned around and saw the tears on Sarah's cheeks, her shoulders shaking. I hadn't expected that when we finally met again, I would be doing well in medicine, while Sarah had fallen into hell. I'm sorry, I can't help you. I didn't leave any room for talking, and I didn't want to get involved with her now. After all, it was she who had chosen to leave me before. I didn't come to you asking for help this time. I just thought that after the next court time, I'd really be going to jail. I wanted to see you once more before that happens. Recently, I keep dreaming about us before. Back then, I really didn't like you, and all my love was fake. But now, I can't help but miss you all the time. In that life, you would support any choice I made, and you would always be there, protecting me. Without Fiona, you would still choose to forgive me, wouldn't you? She suddenly asked me. No. And even if there's a next life, I would still choose Fiona. I answered right away. Sarah was silenced by my words. She wiped the tears, took a deep breath, and after a long pause, finally spoke. "All right, I understand. I never expected that the situation with Kevin and Sarah would change. It seemed that Sarah had decided to go all in, showing all of Kevin's bad deeds, risking her name to bring him down. Kevin couldn't handle the public pressure and was soon being criticized online. It turned out that Kevin had argued with the company he had worked with before. In the past, Kevin's success had been mostly because of the Green family's help. This time, with the Green family no longer helping him, other companies didn't want to put money into him. Fiona took things further, holding Kevin's criminal proof in her hands. She dragged me along to Kevin's company and forced him to clear up the lies that my dad had killed his sister. With the strength of both our families, taking down Kevin was as easy as stepping on a bug. "William, you think you've won just by using words to defeat me?" Kevin laughed loudly. "Everything I've done in this life is just to take your life and get revenge for my sister. Nothing else matters." As soon as he said that, the fire alarm rang. Fiona and I realized how serious it was. Kevin had clearly made up his mind to take us down with him. In a final act of craziness, he had set fire to his own company. I quickly turned to open the door and leave, only to find that the door had been locked from the outside. "Don't waste your time. Just wait and say sorry to her in hell for your dad's mistakes." Kevin's face twisted in anger. He was truly crazy. "You're the one who's wasting your time," I shouted back. In the next moment, the door was kicked open. Sarah stood at the door, holding keys. "Quick, go this way," she urged. The firemen arrived soon after, waving their hands and guiding us toward the exit. Without waiting, I grabbed Fiona's hand and rushed out. Kevin realized things were going wrong and tried to follow us, but Sarah suddenly stepped in front of him, using all her strength to knock him down. "Look carefully, Kevin. The one who's going down with you today is me." She tried to pin him to the ground, but she wasn't strong enough. He easily threw her off. However, Sarah was ready. She quickly pulled out a sharp knife and pressed it to Kevin's throat, getting closer step by step. "Choose your death, Kevin. You can die by my knife or you can burn to death in the fire. Your choice." Once I was outside, I told the firemen to go back to help Sarah. Despite the fight with Kevin, Sarah noticed me. In that quick moment, I saw a bit of unwillingness in her eyes. Sarah suddenly threw the keys out the window, kicked away the thing blocking the door, and with a loud bang, the door slammed shut. Without the keys, the firemen couldn't open the door, and with the fire spreading, they had no choice but to give up. I, on the other hand, had breathed in too much smoke and fainted. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in my 80-year-old body. However, this time, the person sitting next to me was Fiona. "Where are Kevin and Sarah?" I asked as I sat up. She frowned, looking confused. "They've been dead for many years, don't you remember?" she replied. I looked out the window, and as the days passed, I realized that the memories of my past life were starting to disappear. After a few days, I could no longer remember Sarah at all.